Hey everybody, this is Richard Crow. I'm here today to bring a friend of mine, Gwydion Pendragon. I'm here today for him to share his book, Throwing Bones. So he sent me this book, and I got it just the other day and reviewed it, and I thought it was wonderful. So me and him have been friends for 10 plus years. Um, his exposure to magic and practical applications and connections with the pagan community. I find it essential that we have speakers here that have something valuable to share to the community. And I think he's one of those guys. So, Gwydion, thank you for being here, and we look forward to what you have to share. So, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us about your book. What inspired this? What can you tell people that have not looked at your book yet?
Absolutely. So, most people have seen some form of fortune telling, divination. Uh, Most everybody, even not related to the craft, know about tarot, um, things of that nature, even crystal ball type stuff, right? Scrying, tea leaves, when you brew tea and the way they land in your cup, etc. Pretty much is standard. Most people have seen a lot of divination. Hell, if they don't know anything else, they've seen a magic 8 ball, right? That while that's not really true divination, they understand the concept. Throwing bones, though, and we use the term bones to describe all kinds of things. Um, Maybe originally they were bones, like way, way back. I'm talking caveman days. But it is the oldest form of divination there is, because these pieces have been found in archaeological digs dating back to the times when we started to evolve into uh, a some sort of a faith-based something out there that humans have been trying to figure out. Um, as such, what throwing bones is you're taking little pieces of artifacts. You know, everything from like statues. Okay, for instance, this is an Ushabti device that is actually an ancient archaeological piece from the third dynasty of Egypt, and it is uh, um, a goddess, and it is called a Ushabti, and it's supposed to um, give you protection or basically take chores, if you will, off your plate once you travel into the afterlife. So you can use things like that. Now, they don't have to be specifically like archaeological pieces like that. That's priceless. I don't know that I would throw something like that down on a piece, but I would definitely have something like that in my bone set. But they can also be in my set. I have Monopoly pieces. I have a car, and that car represents to me travel. Um, I actually have bones, chicken bones, like a chicken bone that is like a wing, and that is flight or releasing things. To me, that's what that means. So you have these little pieces that you collect over time, and unlike a deck of tarot cards, unlike other forms of divination. These are personal to you, and they can be everything from little crystals, you know, to this a little gargoyle, so that'd be a protection symbol, right? And what you do is you create these things, and they grow with you over time, and you'll hear the word feeding your bones, right? In like a lot of paths, you have to feed energy. Now, whether that's actual blood from you in some aspects or your connection with that, those bones need that connection with you because it's much more personable. And your set of bones and my set of bones could be exactly the same, but they could have entirely different meanings. Unlike tarot, where you have to figure out 72 different cards or 70 plus different cards, depending on which type of tarot you're using and whether you're actually bringing in oracle cards as well. Um, they are specific to your meaning. So that set of bones, maybe let's say it hadn't changed in 10 years. But from the time you started putting that set together 10 years later, that has a different meaning now, right? That has an entirely different set of meanings to you. And when you throw them, where they land on a mat, a little mat, now that mat can be a line in dirt. It doesn't have to be an actual mat. That's the thing. These things can be just things in your pocket. These things can have spiritual meaning to you. There is no wrong way to put this together. And because it's so personal to you, it's not something that you have to fucking figure out. Pardon my French. There is no dogma to this. This is stripping it down. This is you, right? And that makes it much less intimidating. And since you know that there's no wrong way to do it, you figure out, oh, well, that's my car just landed next to that. And that thimble also maybe a Monopoly piece. That thimble is a protection device, right? Protects your finger. But the car and the thimble landed together. And right next to that, I have a little army man to symbolize a male figure. So what that tells me, that could tell me is, okay, either me or a male figure in my life is going to be traveling, and they need to be particularly careful because there's something they need to be aware of that they're not seeing. So take it slow, double check, maybe check that car out before you go. You see how that works? But to somebody else, that can mean something entirely different. And that's great because there's no wrong way to do this. Unlike tarot, unlike other forms of divination, unlike tea leaves, those tea leaves mean the same pretty much thing for everybody reading them. Tarot cards, the tower card is like, oh my God, I got the tower. Oh shoot, it means my entire life is about to change. Big rocks, right? There's no alternative way to take most of the tarot readings. It makes it much more yours. And since it grows with you, you can go along a little pilgrimage out to a field, pick up a couple of things that stand out to you. You add them to your kit. You add them to your stuff. You can create them for other people. And what you're creating, they get to choose what that meaning is. See, that's the great thing. You buy somebody a tarot deck, now they got to learn the new pictures, they got to learn the new stuff, they got to learn all these new things. Now, I'm not trying to take anything from tarot because I love tarot and I do amazing readings with it. In fact, my last two decks I designed with the help of, I should say, I co-designed with a gal named Seven Tarot by Seven, Seven. If you have a chance, I'm going to do a plug real quick for her because she is amazing. You can find her and she does private readings. Treat yourselves. You won't be sorry. And if you don't think she's all that, you let me know and I'll pay for that damn reading myself out of my pocket. Anyway, so bones are much more personable to you. There's no wrong way to do it. You can have 30, 40 pieces, or you can have 5. I write runes on my bones, so they have different meanings. I write symbols, like one says family or something. Or maybe I write that it's a leg bone because, I'm not a physician and I'm not a veterinarian. So maybe those bones look a lot alike. Um, I have a chicken foot that I use, a black chicken foot from a silky chicken. It means something totally different. Um, and you can mix hoodoo with this. You can mix voodoo with this. You can mix what we call, or what some people call the left hand arts, you know. Um, it doesn't have to be incense and peppermint, unicorns and fluffy clouds. You know, it could be dark things, it could be light things. I believe there's a balance and there's a place for all of them. So that's the other thing. You don't have to get some frou-frou deck that doesn't really speak to you, but that's what they had. I grew up, you know, my dad, I was born pagan. So my dad, one of the first things I remember is the Rider-Waite deck, right? Like he had several of those. They never spoke to me. Still don't. Think they're ugly. They don't give me that energy. The great thing about bones is if it's wrong, it's because of me. Right? So it allows for all paths, even Christian. I've seen plenty of Christian bones, you know, especially with the diasporas of yours truly, right, sir? Where you're bringing in saints, you're bringing in those symbols. Absolutely has a place, you know, right alongside Egyptology. So,
Yeah. I mean, that what are relics? That's simply that. They're talismans made from the essence of the saints, right? The essence of human beings, the power that invested life to give life.
mhm. They might have had something that you didn't necessarily in them at the time. Doesn't mean you don't now. I believe we in my in my path, I hold my gods to account for a lot of my questions, and then when they can't, I hold them accountable for that. Um, I believe that my gods should be able to stand up to ridicule.
Hmm.
It's to be able to stand up to questioning. Simply put, you look at Zeus. He was making love to everybody but his wife, Hera, right? Legitimately, like who was Zeus having sex with? Everybody but Hera. So he was making mistakes. You look at Odin.
Hmm.
Odin made a lot of mistakes. Um, every single diaspora in most of the pagan paths that I know of, if not all, um, are fallible, right? So when we take them in, we're taking in their good with their bad. That's why bones actually works really well because you could use that, but you could use the strength of that as well as, you know, if I have a little figurine of Loki, right? Loki is chaos, right? Loki is, but he's also a way of looking at something in an entirely different way. Like, you know, you ask him, "Hey, Loki, I'm having problems with my work. They just don't respect me. I want you to do something so that they see me for who it is I am and help me out because I really need this raise. Right? I really need to get to a place where they value me as much as I feel that I should be valued in this form, you know, or as much as I value them." So Loki comes in and he says, "Okay, next thing you know, you've lost your job." And he's all saying, "So I helped you, all right?" He's like, "You can thank me very much," like Maui from Moana, right? "You're welcome." That's not what I was asking, Loki. You got this wrong. Now I'm jobless. Yeah, but look, you've got nothing in your way now to get out to a place because they were never going to respect you. You were never going to get that. I can tell you that, right? So what I did is I made sure that that wasn't a burden for you. So when you see Loki, you might have a figure of Loki. It might tell you, hey, it's not chaos. Look for something, look for a path that you wouldn't have thought was the right one and go for that. That's what something on your bones might tell you. See, you wouldn't get that with tarot. You would get, well, maybe you should look at something different. And it would be very generic. It would be very open ended, right? Uh, you might figure that out or you might not. With bones, it gets pretty damn specific. And you can throw those sets where they land, you'll see patterns start to form, right? And through those patterns, you can actually take that pattern, that set of four, and say, give me a little bit more detail. And you throw them again, right? You don't have to deal with the rest of the spread. The rest of the spread you're going to leave there. And now those ones land differently. Obviously, they're going to, right? But now they're at different places. And my book will tell you exactly kind of my way of looking at it, but it'll give you ideas on how to take it and make it yours. This isn't my version that I need to teach you. What the book is how to look at these bones with some ideas on creating your own sets, with actual specific ones that I use, and tailoring that experience to you. So you get in the mindset of being able to wrap your head around a piece of something that you may or may not have ever even seen. But at the end of this, and it's not that many pages, you showed it, right? It's less than 100 pages, so it's an easy read. I didn't want to overburden things. And it's an easy read with great artwork. I'm a little biased in it, but I spent a lot of time doing the artwork. Take a look at it. Each picture has something to do with every piece of that. I wanted to keep it light enough that you could do this as bathroom reading. You know, I think the best magic is usually the easiest. I definitely subscribe to the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid, right? The more advanced you get in magic, the less bogged down you get by the ritual of it. You know, the more real world raw. Because honestly, isn't that what we are? The real world out there doesn't conform to our books. The real world doesn't conform to our dogma, and it certainly doesn't conform to one path. So that's why Bones works, where a lot of other ones don't necessarily not work, but they're not as intuitive. So this will put into it as much energy as you're willing to give it, and it'll grow just like you.
Wonderful. So, what do you do for preparations or to instill that power for people that are interested in how you're operating or giving advice for new people coming along the way, discovering divination? What do you advise to them?
Absolutely. So my first advice is with anything. If you're looking at an item and it speaks to you, you're just like, okay, I got like these little origami good luck stars, right? That a friend gave me. And I open one up. And I say to myself, this one is going to be purple. Come on. Oh, well, okay. Well, first of all, I'd have to get one out. But I open one up. Or maybe I'm just using the jar. In such case, you're going to want to use a padded something so it doesn't shatter. Keep in mind that you're going to be throwing them, right? So you keep in that aspect. If you feel it should belong in your bones, I would suggest that you do not second guess that. If you get an inclination to use that, there's a reason behind it, even if you haven't figured out what it is. My suggestion to you is if you still can't figure out what that item is, whether it's a piece of amethyst, whether it's a goddess or a symbol, if you can't figure out what it is yet, or whether it's even a crow figurine, right? That would be, to me, that would mean messenger, right? Because of Odin's crows, Hugin and Munin, right? I would consider this a messenger. But if you were Blackfeet, this might be a protection. This might be somebody who's telling you about somebody who's crossed over. Totally different, right? So, but it still has a place, right? In my set, in your set, if you're Blackfeet, or Lakota, um, totally different. But that's the great thing. You can take my bones and throw with them, and that energy doesn't change. Why? Because now you're feeding it yours. Unlike most of the time, you'll never come across somebody who's going to want you to do tarot with their deck. They're going to have another deck for you to use, right? They're not going to want you to use their deck. With me, absolutely. I want to see how you're throwing them. I'm going to be taking a look at what's coming up and how it's coming up. My interpretation of it, I'm going to keep to myself because that's not right. Even though I'll see where the stuff is laying, you're doing a reading for me, I'll see the combinations. And to me, if I was doing something, that would be one thing. But then if I have something like this, this is another antique. This is um, an arrowhead that is from about 850 to 950 AD, Icelandic Norse, right? So I've used this one in sets. To me, this would be, or most people might see this as a protection or maybe danger or something like that. I see this as providing. I see this as somebody used this to provide for their families, right? So I'm looking at nurture. To me, this would be nurturing. Why? Because this was not a battle arrow. This was a hunting arrow, right? And so they were trying to provide, especially where this was found. This was found near Floki's expedition, right, to Greenland. And times were really hard where they landed. And so the hunting was so scarce. So that this to me would be providing for your family in times where there's not going to be a lot there to provide for, right? So that's the great thing about these. You can use all your relics as well as a figurine from a Sorry board game, and it has perfect place there. Why? Because that figurine could be the last thing your brother who passed away did with you, and that meant something. You're going to be able to bring that personality, that personal experience, that personal gnosis, if you will, to your readings. And that's what you kind of get in the mindset. And once you start thinking along those lines, that's the first part of root magic. Isn't reading a book and reciting a ritual, right? It's understanding why you would recite that ritual, understanding the energy thereof, because anyone who has spent a decent amount of time studying magic, any form, will tell you it's more important about the intention than anything else. So my little book there is to get you along, not to tell you how to do it. Give you some examples of how I do it, and maybe they can work for you. You need a little bit more of information of it or ideas, of which I am always available, even though I might be a little bit slow sometimes to get back with you. Do not fret. I am on Facebook. I am on other forms of social media. You can find me, and I will answer questions and help out. My job is to teach first and foremost and to learn second. I'm going to be learning as much from you guys as I hope that you can from me. Why? Because that's how I was taught. So this is supposed to be approachable.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Would you make different sets of bones for different purposes, or do you just use one set that you're comfortable with?
Oh no, I have plenty of sets. I have sets that are all gemstones because crystals give me a certain sort of energy. I have ones that are all bones. I have ones that are runes and different kinds of runes. I have ones that mix runes with I Ching coins, right? Because that energy for the right person, I'll feel that. It's just like tarot decks. I have 5 or 6 tarot decks behind me over here. I have several sets up here of crystals that I use, artifacts, etc. If I find that person, I'll ask them a little bit about their background in it. I'll ask them about what path they follow, kind of give me an idea of their personality. When I get that idea of what I'm getting from them, and that's as much of being an empath as anything else, where that piece will make this set work for me, right? In that aspect, I'll find a set that will work for them, right? And maybe that centerpiece will change. Hell, the altar cloth sometimes changes for me. I have, for instance, if I was going to throw for Richard, I would go out in a yard or something, in my backyard, or there's a grove of trees about 200 yards from my house, about 100 yards from my house, that I would go. And I would do my cloth, if you will. I would write out my cloth in the dirt itself. And I would do his in that. And I would show the aspects of where things would. I do a quadrant.
Don't forget to take out your trash.
Sorry about that. It's my Alexa reminding me because I have ADHD. So what I would do then is for Richard, because I know him, and because I know of his background, where it's at right now, as well as where he came from when I met him, and what happened when we shared a campsite, right? And he was smudging. I know a little bit of background that I don't know he makes public. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. So I won't go into that. But that piece of it, that grounding energy, that heavy earth connection with him, that would be his. Before I even got to the bones, before I even decided which ones I would use. Now, with Richard, it would be heavily bone related, actual bones. And in that aspect, I would draw some of these. These are very special. And I would probably add this to the mat itself. Now, these are human remains of a Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhist background. And I don't need to get into really what they were. They are basically venerated artifacts. And when they survived the crematory experience of the person being elevated, these were ritualistic, right? They were saved, from the fires, and as such, they were collected by loved ones, and these came into my possession. And you honor the person who these belonged to, as well as the person getting the reading when you add these things to it. And I have things like this, and in this aspect, I would definitely add this to Richard's reading, right? Just because of what it is I know about it. But at the same time, I would also add a piece of incense. This is Hela incense. This is incense I created. It comes over time. Each piece takes a certain day, takes about a month and a half to put together, and each piece is building to it. It's a layered experience. Add a piece of that to it, and that would mean something. I would tailor each set of bones, especially if it wasn't like a one-off reading. Like if this was a person that mattered to me in my background, that I could take a little time because I know them. But that's the other thing. So I'm an empath, right? The connection before the reading is as important to me as the reading itself. I'm going to get more before I even start the reading, but that's me. And some people aren't. So what do you do when you don't have that empathic connection? You use other pieces that would get you there, right? That would basically empower what you do come with. And if you don't, and if you're new to this, and what I'm talking about is way over your head, and you're like, man, I want to eventually get there, but right now I'm like 2 weeks into this. I don't even know if this is my thing. Great. Absolutely. You know why? Because by the end of this, you're going to figure out that even if it's not, even if the craft isn't your thing, even if you're not pagan, even if you're Christian, you're fundamental Christian, you could actually take this and still use it, and you're not breaking Bible, you're not breaking the Torah, you're not breaking any Kabbalah laws, you're not breaking any piece of this. You're not breaking Confucianism, you're not breaking Buddhism. Each piece of this allows for these kinds of readings. I have not found a faith yet that doesn't actually have a background in this, doesn't just allow it, but has a background in doing this. Absolutely, this has been done in the church. And as such, it allows for all paths, but denies none. And isn't that what we're trying to do anyway? So my experience would be, try something out. You'll know whether it's working for you or not. Try it yourself. Hell, you could do a bones throwing on your pets. I've done one. My cats look at me funny until they're trying to run off with my bones. You got to be careful about that. So, and I do give you some ideas on what you need to do if you're going to be using actual bones, so that they're, you don't want people getting sick. How to sanitize them and what not to do. So you don't want to use bleach. It'll make the bones too brittle. It'll wear them down. But there are other methods that are much more health conscious too. So.
Great. Anybody else have any further questions?
I mean, so some of that, like you're talking about, for Richard, you would include those almost like a rosary or prayer beads.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying to get into the mindset, some of the preparatory work is almost like attuning to the person.
Yeah.
So like I myself, Holly is very empathetic. I am not.
Absolutely.
So the attunement to get to them, if you're trying to do a reading for someone else and you haven't constructed a specific kit for others, you're just using your own, what would you suggest is to get to that level of empathy to make it make sense for them, or that you're on the same wavelength as them?
Yeah. Her kit is going to be more nuanced. Her kit is going to have things like, let me see. Actually, so her kit is going to have things like possible crescent moons, right? Crystals, crescent moon, right? Her kit is probably going to have something like labradorite, because it has different colors. There's a lot there. So labradorite to her might say, there's something that's cloudy in there. There's something that's got a lot of things going on. I'm getting different kinds of energy from this, right? So I'm going to add this to show where I'm not sure what the energy is yet. Let's play it out. Yours is going to be a broom, right? It's a crystal broom, right? To show something that's a lot more direct. To be like, okay, that broom is clearing, man. That broom is, I got to do some chores. That broom is like house cleaner. It's going to be direct. Yours is not going to be nuanced. Yours is going to be pretty much matter of fact. You're going to have a car, like I said. That one's going to be easy for you, right? It's going to be more in your face, more to the point. There's not going to be a lot of guesswork, right? To you. Now, that same set, if I'm looking at it, it's going to have an entirely different meaning. To you, it's going to mean these things, and it's going to be pretty damn concrete. You're not going to be going into the wishy-washy aspects. You're not going to be going into things that might be different. If you're going to have something to represent somebody who's passed away, you're going to have something like a skull, right? You're going to have something like a picture of something, or hell, a little symbol of the Punisher, if you will, right? The comic book piece to show that there's exactly okay. There we go. There we go. I didn't even see that. There we go. So you know exactly what I'm saying. So that's going to mean something to you, where it might not mean the same thing to me, right?
Oh,
I'm
unit, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be having all kinds of weird things because those I'm going to be remembering in the back of my head that connection, that physical, that emotional connection when that person was in the room, where I was at, when I got that item, what I was doing when that item came to me, and I'm going to be attaching to that emotion, that emotional state, especially since I'm Cancer, right? And I'm the epitome of that. So I am ruled by my emotions. Not as cool as you think, but as such, where something came into my existence matters to me, right?
So, so like with that, you were talking about some kits will have 5 pieces, some can have 30 or 40.
Yeah.
Do you have like pillars of direct connection for these meanings? So you get,
Yeah.
this is always a positive. This is always a warning. This is always
Yeah.
like when you build a kit, even if you only have 5 pieces, do you have like 5 main things that you're
No.
attributing these to?
The mat itself has a lot to do with it, has as much to do with it as what you're throwing. Where it lands, how it lands, if it lands in the circle at all, usually it's a circle, right? And the quadrants. So up top in the book, it'll tell you like how I'm doing it. Up top means something that's coming to you, right? Coming in your future. Down below means something closer to the center lines where the crossroads are something that you're going through now. Or down further down on the bottom half of that circle, right? The 2 quadrants will be something in your past that's coming back to you, right? An ex, a family member. For you, I would suggest something like, if you wanted to start with a couple pieces, I would suggest something like one of your dad's old car keys, because that's going to hold a very special meaning to you, right? One of, maybe something from the house you grew up at. That's going to hold, again, you say you're not an empath, but I can tell you that you probably have something like that in your past that you've probably kept. You're going to be keeping that stuff close to you. Why? Because that is the way you connect, right? And don't feel obligated to necessarily tell the history about each one of your bones, each one of your connections, because maybe you're not, maybe you need that piece in your set, but you're not willing to really share that experience. So you don't have to. And it's still going to hold that same meaning to you. But those are connections where you can bring into your past something like a loved one that's passed over, and that's a really great bone to have. Just make sure that you protect it like you would if it were on your shelf, because you don't want to lose it. I have lost ones that I cannot get back, and it does kill you. But at the same time, to use them in such a method that you're providing somebody with an experience that they're not going to get through a tarot deck. They're not going to get through scrying. They're not going to get through tea leaves, through other sets, through cloud divination, because they're connecting now, or you're allowing them to connect now with your ancestral energy, with the people that came before you, how you got here. And every one of us has ancestral energy. What you choose to do with it is going to matter. But you're letting people experience some of what got you here. It's not, and you don't get that in a tarot deck at all, unless it was your dad's tarot deck or your mom's tarot deck. Now, in my defense, I will say that I do have that, but I'm lucky, right? I am not the normal person in that aspect. And I was lucky that I was able to have that piece of that. So not everybody gets that. So what do you do when you don't have that? You have to come up with different methods. And this is how you would do it. You would have something like that. Maybe a piece of a bandana that's old. Maybe your dad had, maybe your uncle had a jacket, right? Like a biker's jacket. And you have a piece of leather from it. Not a big piece, just a little leather piece. And I'm looking at that and I just see a scrap of something. But to you, that means everything. That means definitely protection. That means fight or flight, right? That means the guy did what he needed to do to you. And all I see is a scrap. Right. So definitely, if you don't have that empathic ability, that's not going to stop you here. In fact, that's going to empower you because you're going to find bones that actually do ring out to you, right? And don't second guess it. Like I said, if you grab something, you're like, yeah, I'm going to use this. Haven't figured out yet what yet or how yet. Throw it a few times. See how it lands. See, take it with something like a family piece, maybe a dog figurine, to represent, loyalty, right? See where it lands. It might tell you where you should be using it. That's what I do. I throw it a few times, just as like practice, if you will. It'll tell me how I'm seeing it line up down there on my mat. And I have different mats for different things. And like I said, sometimes I'm just using dirt. It'll tell me where it wants to be. You don't have to be stoic. You don't have to be full-blood Cherokee. You don't have to have that sort of connection. Great if you do, but there's a much more majority of us that only get that close in Hollywood, right? Doesn't mean we can't tap into that same primal energy. You just have to listen for it, right? You're going to see it in a different way. Why? Because you're not that empathic, you don't think, but you're trying to figure this out. It sounds interesting, so why not, right? It's a lot more approachable. And at the end, and like I said, you have me. So like you have a question about it, you just hit me up, hey man, I saw your talk, or I read your book, can you help me figure these out? Or give me some ideas. In some aspects, I can point you to the right direction on some items, but you look at my book and it'll tell you that. Well, my book goes through a lot of different things, from seashells to crystals to bones to game pieces, dice. I have a little dice because I used to do a lot more role playing than I do now. But like when I was growing up, I did a lot of role playing, Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. And so I bring in some of those aspects. I have little figurines and stuff, or dice, just regular 6-sided dice or 20-sided dice or something, and they mean totally different things. Some of them are metal, right? And the fact that they're lead means something. That lead is going to be a weight. That lead is going to be an anchor. This is something you're trying to break away from, right? Something that's either you're trying to break away from or it's holding you down. Whereas the Sekhmet figure, that's Sekhmet, by the way. So, goddess. If it'll focus. There we go. There. Maybe. Ow. I'm trying here. It's not working with me. But that's Sekhmet. And she is a protector, but she is also Mama. And in that aspect, I would use her, and she would be matriarch, protective Mama, but definitely matriarch. Whereas you might not get that at all. You're just like, okay, somebody from your past. That's an old girlfriend, or that's an old job that you really liked that provided for you when you didn't have much going on, right? To you, that's exactly what that means. And It might not have that meaning to you, but to me, it would be something entirely different. See, though, that one piece has multiple meanings, and to Holly, it would mean something entirely different, probably, right? Especially since female, right? Like identifying as, try not to like assume. Uh, um, and in that aspect, that's what that would mean, right? Three different ways, three different people. Two are very close. One, I have nothing, and maybe they overlap, right? Maybe it's the exact same thing though. And that's awesome what it does. Because when I tell you, what do you get when I ask you the question, what do you get when you see that? Because maybe I want to see what your reaction is. Because I'm on the fence as to what that might mean. And I'm now looking at you. And now my empath comes out, right? And I'm saying, so you see this? What do you see when you see those two together? What is that? What would you say? And I'm describing it to you, and you're seeing it. And I can do this remotely or in person or on Zoom, right? As long as you're able to see it. Or even if you're not able to see it, I can describe it for you. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to picture these two items. What's the first thing that comes up in your mind? Don't overthink. I want the first thing that comes out of your mouth, right? And you say this. I'm like, oh, okay. I see what you did. I see what you did there. You took that little fence post and you're like, that's somebody trying to keep me from getting somewhere. Now I want to look over what that fence post is. To me, that white picket fence thing, that's like something that just that's describing a home, right? But to you, you're looking at it as a block, right? I'm looking at it as a keep the world out. Exactly opposite, right? That's why I'm going to ask you. See, with tarot, I'd be telling you what that meant. Oh man, this thing, that's the world card. That means you got a lot of open paths coming up. Um, that's the Nine of Wands or the Nine of Swords. You see, he's trying to juggle all that shit. You know, he's got too much going on. He can't hold all those swords. Nobody needs all those swords. Why are you trying? What are you worried about in your life that you need that much protection from? See, I've told you what that meant. I didn't ask you. I'm asking you who hurt you to make you feel like you need that nine, those nine swords. But I'm just asking why. I've already told you that that's what's happening. With Bones, I'm going to ask you about that. So it leaves a lot more open to interpretation, and there's no wrong way to interpret it. It's what you feel. And when you look at that, you're going to have a feeling, even if it's confused at first. You're going to ask them. So what do you see when you see that? You got an idea of what you're thinking you're saying. You ask that person what they're saying, and somewhere in that aspect, it's like, talking to your ex. You're not really sure what the hell that she's angry about now. You slow it down before you jump off. And you're like, God damn it, I don't want to talk to you about this. Every time we talk, it just gets an argument. That might be true. But if you ask her, why is she saying that? Why is she looking at that? If you slow that down, you might hear something that you didn't hear before. You might save yourself that argument. So asking those questions, though, will lead to what that reading is, even if you don't know at first. So that's my suggestion. And try it. Just try it. Try throwing it around and seeing what pattern, even if you don't know what the hell you're doing it, especially if you don't know what the hell you're doing it, throw them down on something. Write it on a piece of paper. Write a little circle. Make a quadrant, just like I show you. And I show you a few different ways. It's really easy, but it can be really complicated if you want it to. I don't like complications. I don't get the deep stuff where people do these star maps and stuff like that and just it boggles my mind and it kind of makes my head scratch, like trigonometry. And I was like, what are you talking about? You lost me 30 minutes ago. So I like direct things that I can kind of squirrel if I need to, which I will, whether I need to or not. ADHD again, right? But you can make it a little bit more direct.
Cool. Did anybody else here have any questions before I move on with Gwydion? I had a few more things before we closed.
Question, but I just wanted to say I love the creativity and individuality of it. That's really appealing. So I ordered the book, by the way, just a minute ago.
Great.
So did we.
I read the book in one day, and it was incredible.
Yeah. If you want them autographed or anything, if you order the physical book, you can send them to me. I'll send them back. I'll even cover shipping for that. I am not doing this to make money. I've kept it as low as I can for the price point that Amazon needs me to make it as close to being free as possible for you guys. And so now continental United States, I have to make that point clear because I did extend myself out a couple times, and man, some of those countries are expensive to ship to. But I will send it back, and I'll even. Do you have yours with you, sir?
I do.
Can you open it up to the little cover there? I'll even give you the seal, my seal. That's if you can tell, it's not really clear, but that is my sigil, as well as on the right-hand side where I draw it. I can't explain it to you if you want me to, as well as in the book right there. That's a perfect method. That is everything about me. And I will sign it for you. I'll dedicate it for you free of charge. I will send it back to you free of charge. All you have to do is get it to me. If you'd like, you can just email me and I'll email you my actual address. I would ask that you not spread that around if you could, please. I already get enough stuff as it is. But I would be very honored if you wanted that. And I'll get that back to you very quickly.
Great. I just wanted to again thank you for your time, what you share with this community. We have a pretty large outreach to people on many different paths that come here to watch these videos, and hopefully the information that you're sharing touches someone, influences them to reach out to you and make that part of their divination practice. That they can expand and become a little bit more in depth with simplicity, and can find a way for their own intuitive abilities to be enhanced by simple actions. Connecting to nature, resources that are readily available to you. Looking at the material, you made it very easy and accessible for anyone, no matter financial standing. You're not having to go explore 100 miles wide. It's what's accessible, what's available, what can you put in your hands to make sense of things.
I did this with kitchen items. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the idea. These were done by, in the last 150 years, these were done by like Appalachians who don't have anything, who are dirt poor, who have nothing else. And they went out to their yard and they picked up things that they found in their yard, trash items. Absolutely, you can do that. In fact, I would go around to your yard and just do things that have probably been in your possession for a while, things that you do find around. Why? Because the reason you find them is enough reason by itself to have a place in your journey.
I 100% agree with that. I've had numerous situations where, I didn't have divination tools accessible, and I needed answers right in that moment. And finding what you can grab and put your hands on, and knowing that it comes from within you, and the ability to unlock that potential to be able to see, and asking the genius loci or localized spirits to assist you, or the energies or vibrations that permeate your connections with divinity and those powers, and impacting that by a simple course of action of saying, assist me, aid me in these works. And it's
Yeah.
quite simple. Divination is not hard. We make it difficult.
Yeah, exactly. We're trying to hear too many voices, to do too many things, to do too much stuff because hell, our culture instills that in us. We walk out and we see these things on TV or in the movie theater, or we read about them in books that are just grandiose, right? Um, it's so much larger than life, and so at that point it becomes unapproachable. It's not though. Just listen, slow yourself down, just breathe. It's as much you as what you're bringing to it. It's as much the connection of what you've had in your past. And if you don't think you have a connection, you just aren't listening. Every one of us has a connection to every person in our who got us there, right? If you think, well, I was adopted, and that adoption matters. The blood in you matters, whether you know where it came from or not, whether you've had your DNA done, whether you know what it is you are, whether there's some question about that. That still doesn't matter, right? You're still here. You've still come through that journey, what got you here. And sometimes our ancestors aren't even related to us, right? I have as many ancestral energy coming through my bones, my personal bones, like in my lineage, if you will, as much as I do through my friends that are family by choice that have gone on to other things. And I pull from that energy as much. In fact, probably more because it's more approachable, right? I'm not bothering grandpa. I'm not bothering, well, grandma. My lineage is passed down from my grandma on my dad's side through my dad, etc. I'm multi-generational. Let's just say that's the easiest way to explain it. But again, I pull that from that energy as much or as much as I need to. But if I don't have to bug them, I won't necessarily. I'll bug my friends. I'll ask for that energy. Why? Because they're always there. They're hanging around, making sure I'm still alive and kicking and doing what I need to do in my own headspace. So, and they'll be the first to help out in the situation. They yelled at me before they were dead. Now that they've crossed over, they yell at me still. Right? A lot easier when I get off the path. And so, in a divination experience, I'm pulling that energy through that little trinket. I'm pulling that energy through that curio. I'm pulling that energy through that bone, right? That might be this little jar, right? That I keep some ashes of a friend in. To you, just looks like a jar. I have things like that though, you know. And while I have some fancy things I showed you, it doesn't have to be. In fact, don't make it. Build up to something like that. Make it something that just makes sense to you. And if it doesn't make sense, take it out. Take it out. When it makes sense, add it back in. There's no way to know what's going to work for you from reading to reading. I don't know that. I don't know that about me. I certainly won't know that about you. If it makes sense to you, though, it will just click. So don't overthink it. Just dumb it down, keep it simple, get a few items, see what happens. And if you have any questions about it, if you have any questions about the grouping, said, hey, Bill, So my birth name is Bill. You'll see me like on Facebook and stuff like that, Bill Genzoli. My craft name, Gwydion Pendragon. There's a little story behind that for a different time. Um, if you say, hey, dude, so I tried this and I had this little thing in it and it fell down with this, and this is what my thing looked at. Take a little picture with my cell phone, or I drew it down on a piece of paper. This is what I got. So I got some questions about it. What do you get when you get this? This is what I'm seeing, and this is where I went with it, or I thought I went with it, but I'm kind of confused. I'll tell you what it is I see, and maybe we can come up to what it is you see and see where it is that's confusing you. Because hell, I wrote a book on it. I should be able to stand up to the ridicule of it and the questions that you're going to have to ask. All right, and if I can't, I shouldn't have written that damn thing. That's how I look at it. And you're helping me because I'm going to have a deeper understanding of what it is I was trying to say. Hopefully, it came out clear in that book. I don't know. All right. Hopefully, I didn't just ramble on as I tend to do. And maybe get something out of it.
Yeah, seemed pretty clear to me. I mean, so yeah, I just wanted the world to know what you have going on. Get to know Gwydion Pendragon on a little deeper level, and say, hey, here's a guy out here doing some stuff. If you're interested, hey, check him out. So that was kind of the premise. We met each other through grade school. We were involved with social interactions for almost 10 years there. For a while, we were really immersed in conversations quite frequently, and life took over. So I think
you went to the East Coast, buddy.
Yeah. I'm a wanderer. I stay until my purpose is fulfilled, and I find where I go next.
Yeah.
So
always a wanderer. That's a good thing, though. Got a tattoo of that. Not all those who wander are lost.
So
yeah. So if you have any questions about my background or anything, feel free to ask too. Like I was lucky enough to have a very exclusive upbringing. I was born into paganism with some of our most esteemed elders, I should say, that are with us today, and some have passed over. Isaac Bonowitz of the ADF, which is the Druidic movement. Oberon and Morning Glory Zell. Zell Ravenheart. I knew him back then as Otter. Morning Glory is still Morning Glory is watching over the remains of my family, my brother, my dad, my dogs, my aunt, as well as a few others, and will be eventually my older brother John, who is right there on camera, and that's my mother. One of my mothers. They used to fight all the time, so I have their remains on that same shelf right next to each other. It's my way of making them deal with each other. So
where can people get a hold of you? What's the best way to communicate?
So on Facebook, you can find me, Bill, Bill, last name Genzoli, Genzoli, on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok if you want, by email, BGENZOLI, so bgenzoli @gmail.com. You can find me there. If you Google me, I'll always come up very quickly. I'm on a lot of things, Witchfox, etc. PaganSolidarity.us is the new thing we're doing. If you guys haven't seen that, living in kind of chaotic times. No matter where you land on the spectrum, where you are, I say that you have a place at my table as long as there's a mutual respect. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your path is. Some people are gatekeepers. I am not. I allow you to see yourself out. If you want to be at my table, you are free. I will invite you into my hearth and into my home. Now, I have a lot of weird shit in my house. So if I'm allowing you into my home, I ask that you keep an open mind because there's a lot of strange things. And I do have a potty mouth, as you can tell.
Me too. That's fine.
And the people I grew up around kind of instilled that in me. But with that said, I'm hopefully going to make you laugh. And if not, I'll make me laugh, and hopefully you'll just laugh at my stupidity too. And I'll mind admitting to myself that I am as stupid as I am smart. And I get plenty of things wrong. Of a perpetual student in all aspects. I am a studier of many faiths. I am a high priest, an ordained minister in a few different paths, as is Richard. I do not have the background that he does in his path that he's taken over the last few years that I'm incredibly interested in. But
talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I do have it under good authority that I might have a place at that table, possibly. As such, if I have anything, I've been through several countries around the world. I've seen artifacts and hallowed ground on every continent except one. And that's going to happen soon, hopefully. So if you have any questions about anything craft related, whether it has to do with bones or not, I am here. I'm sure, artifacts to help enlighten, and I have a background in a very wide variety of things. So if I have any job here on this earth, it is to help you with your journey, and in that help, hopefully I figure out my own crap. So
Cool. Well, thank you for your time again, and I think that we're going to come to a close for the recording and have some talk before we have to all depart for the evening, if that's okay. And thank you.
Thank you for having me.